into mental moments where small changes have lasting ripples. This week, hypnosis. Woohoo! I've talked about the myths of hypnosis in episode 1. Episode 2, we talked about how hypnosis is a fast way to get to change quickly. And number 3, we talked about trauma responses in accidental hypnosis. So if you haven't watched that episode, you might want to do that so that this episode will make sense, because this episode we're going to talk about how hypnosis can be used in therapy. And one of the ways we use it is to reverse accidental hypnosis. Hypnosis has been used for many, many years. In the 1700s, Frank Mesmer was a German physician who developed mesmerism. And so that's the first thing that looked like hypnosis. And there's been a variety of different techniques. And the very first one in records is from 2600 BC, the father of Chinese medicine, where he talked about involved incantation and passing of the hands, very much like hypnosis. In 17, okay. So some of the noteworthy pioneers is James Braid, and he was an eye doctor, and he was working kind of late one night, and he walked out, and he was in the 1800s, early 1800s. He walked out and he saw one of his patients staring at the flame of the lantern, and he was just like, and he was like, wow. And that's when he started using fixation of an object, which works. You can definitely do that. But that's where we get the little watch. Now, Dr. Easdale, very important guy, huge benefits. He did medical hypnosis. So he would get people in a very, very, very deep state of hypnosis and would be able to do surgeries on them. It works really good. And in fact, there's some that still do it today for surgery and for dental work, things like this, because a person recovers quickly and they've experienced no pain. You know, in hypnosis, he tells them they're numb. They are numb, and they stay numb until he brings them out. Couple of movements kind of ended that. For one was the hypodermic needle, and 2, chemical anesthesia. So you don't see that as often, but it was done in the Civil War. There was a group of Easdale hypnotists that, would go on the battlefield and put people in hypnosis so they could do amputations. Now, they weren't as prevalent as they would have liked. Sigmund Freud, often referred to as the father of psychology, rejected hypnosis, and as such, kind of put it back a good while. And in the 1930s, we did have a book by Clark Hall called Hypnosis and Suggestibility. One of the more famous, and in fact, there's a whole bunch of techniques we call Ericksonian techniques, and that's because of Milton Erickson. And he was in the 1900s, and he was known as an authority on hypnosis. He used indirect suggestions. We talk about direct suggestions and indirect. What's the difference? A direct suggestion may sound like you have all the confidence you need to stand up in front of a group of people. And when you stand up in front of a group of people, it causes you to relax, be at ease, and comfortable. Direct suggestion. Indirect suggestion might be a story about somebody overcoming, and it doesn't necessarily have to be overcoming stage fright, for example, but it could, but it's overcoming something, and then the brain makes meaning out of that, and that's a more indirect. And Milton Erickson's techniques are used today, and I've even used them. They work. They work. If it works, it works. Now, what does it work for? There are basically 3 categories. So first I'm going to talk about is behavioral. Okay, behavioral is like better golf swing. Behavioral things like a better golf swing, stop smoking, stop drinking, curtail eating, stop stammering, any of these behaviors that are in the body, so to speak, that you can change, sleep, things like that. Then there is kind of the mental, more the cognitive processes. This can be anxieties, social anxiety, test anxiety, etc. It can be overcoming depression. It can be improving confidence and willpower and any and all, reducing anger and anger responses. All of these are things that you can use hypnosis for, and they're considered cognitive. Now, I hinted at the beginning, accidental hypnosis. Briefly, accidental hypnosis is when something happens, we suddenly go into a sudden shock and we're totally confused, and our brain drops into theta immediately, and everything is taken in as fact. Our brain associates these, and therefore a trauma response is born. So then anytime somebody, whatever the brain associated, the sights, smells, sounds around them, experience, emotions, all were then connected to the emotion of fear, panic, that sort of thing. So really debilitating in someone's life. Worked with a person one time that was in a car accident, and it was a pretty bad car accident. And then later was walking with a friend and witnessed a car accident, a car coming over the curb and bam, hitting a tree. So when they came in for hypnosis work, they said the sound of crunching of the carrots would send them just, oh. Well, as it turned out, the brain associated that tree crunching, is that crunch, is associated with danger of a car crash. So yes, kids crunching carrots, well, snapping, stepping on a stick, and freak out and panic. Very useful if there were anything dangerous about stepping on a stick, but pretty useless when it's how to avoid it. How do you, tell your kids you can't eat carrots or any other crunching sound, any kind of crunching sound, that metal screeching door sound, anything like that. And all of a sudden, like freak out and panic and run away. Not to mention all the other stuff like fear of getting in the car and being in a car and all of this. So the brain associates this in theta. So using hypnosis, we can go in and break those associations. And so crunching does not equal danger. Crunching is just that, it's crunching, whatever, no big deal. It's just whatever. And I use quite a few different techniques. I can use direct suggestions or indirect suggestions. And one technique that I love to use is called the rewind technique, in which we manipulate the emotionally charged memory to take away the emotional charge. Boom, throw it away. And once you take the emotional charge off of the memory becomes just plain Jane. And it breaks the associations of this is fearful, this is dangerous, I must remember. And therefore the flashes go away, the daydreams, nightmares, all of that can go away. So hypnosis is very, very useful for trauma work. And in my private practice, I do a lot of trauma work. So I do a lot of hypnosis for this, and I've had a lot of experience. Horrific rapes, gropings, accidents, whether it's a one-time deal or ongoing like childhood trauma. If it's an ongoing, it does take a few more sessions than say a one-time. One of the main reasons I love to use hypnosis for trauma work in particular is that it works, number one. Two, it does not come with re-traumatization or re-experiencing all the old stuff. Like EMDR, you go through and your EMDR is eye movement reprocessing and desensitization. Say that 3 times. But it's basically you're recalling the memory while you're watching the clinician. You move their fingers and your eyes are moving, and you go through the memory and do so. I am trained, I have done it, and I didn't like it for the particular reason that a lot of times my clients would dissociate because of the increased anxiety and emotionality around doing so. In fact, one woman did. She completely dissociated. She went white, pasty, and brought her back to the room. And I was like, get in a nice, comfortable position and close your eyes. And I immediately did hypnosis. We went in, desensitized that memory, and got rid of it. They don't have to be in the memory. So at first they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be in the memory. Oh, you're not in the memory. So there is no re-traumatization. There's no re-experiencing. Therefore, it's so much easier. Exposure techniques, are they effective? Yes, they have a huge dropout. Why? You have somebody that was raped and you have them come in and sit down and just tell the rape story over and over and over. And the person's crying and in a fetal position and going through it. And eventually the brain goes, oh, I'm tired of this. And poof, emotionality goes away. Okay, most people drop out of that. Don't blame them. That doesn't sound pleasant. So hypnosis, I can skip all of that and go straight to, let's hear this memory. You don't get into the memory at all. And we're going to manipulate the tar out of it and get rid of the emotionality, and the memory fades away and is no longer important. Person's life is improved. Then I can focus on how to live life without all this trauma stuff. And that's so much more useful. In fact, hypnosis can be used for installing it, because if a person is afraid, anytime somebody raises their voice, suddenly we get rid of all the emotionality around the person that raised their voice in the beginning. Well, you still don't have the skills to work in confrontations and work through conflicts. So hypnosis can be very good for those kind of cognitive issues. So what is hypnosis useful for? Great stuff. It can be useful for behavioral stuff, getting that perfect golf swing, doing that sports thing, or it can be conforming to your diet plan. It can be cognitive stuff, such as social anxiety, test anxiety, sleeping, not being anxious when in confrontations or conflicts. And 3, it's great at reversing accidental hypnosis due to sudden shock and confusion in a difficult situation. Alrighty, so in the next episode, we're going to talk about, can you do hypnosis on yourself? And if you haven't seen the other episodes, you can check them out on my YouTube channel or at morejoyfullife.com. Thank you.